there are pacts that speak without language, sealed not by ink, but by the trembling of a soul, agreeing to be seen by what should not be seen. Your sister made hers in silence, under a moon split by clouds like wounded flesh, with her breath held and her heartbeat loud enough to call attention from the deep. She thought it was curiosity, a question answered by signs and symbols. But what came in reply had waited centuries for such a breach. It began with her isolation, not the kind you see with locked doors or empty dinners, but a deeper separation. Like her spirit had withdrawn several steps behind her body, she would sit with you and smile while something else stood watching from behind her eyes. You saw it the day she brought home the box, small, blackened wood sealed with thread, smelling of earth and iron. She said it was antique, gifted from someone she didn't name. Inside were items that should never be placed in a living home, bones too small to belong to any known animal, a scrap of red cloth stained in a ring, a mirror shard wrapped in wax. You touched it once. It burned not your skin, but your thoughts. You forgot where you were, forgot your name for a split second, and when you blinked back to reality, she was watching you. She didn't look angry. She looked disappointed. From that moment on, the spiritual rot began to spread. You started waking up with your name carved into your dreams, whispered from voices inside dark corridors. Your mother began to speak in her sleep again, just as she did after her own sister disappeared. Your father grew forgetful, his eyes clouded more often, like he was watching something move just beyond his sight. None of them knew why. But you did. You saw the light in your sister's room fade day by day, until even sunlight no longer touched her walls with warmth. God says a soul, once compromised, becomes a beacon for things not of this world. Your sister thought she could navigate the edge and not fall, but she was pulled, not violently, slowly, lovingly, even like a mother coaxing a child into water too deep for their feet. And she went willingly, flattered by the attention of a force that told her she was special, chosen, set apart. But chosen by what? Archangel Michael says she has been marked, not in flesh, but in frequency. Her energy has changed, shifted, warped just enough that holy things recoil. That is why the family altar won't stay lit. That is why your cross burned cold when you held it near her. The house bends now when she walks. Quiet creaks that respond to her footfall, like old servants rising from the dust. She has changed how she speaks. Her words are heavier, coated in meaning even she does not fully understand. She asks strange questions at dinner, stares too long into the fire, hums tunes you've never heard but can't forget. There are days when she doesn't blink, nights when her eyes glow faintly in reflections. And once, when lightning split the sky, you saw her silhouette in the window, arms raised, whispering to something only she could see. You found the journal. She didn't mean for you to. It was hidden behind the insulation in the attic crawl space. Pages soaked in oil, entries written in looping script, alternating between your sister's handwriting and another hand. one you'd swear came from no human wrist. There were lists of names, drawings of eyes, circles with teeth, instructions in a language your tongue refuses to pronounce. On one page, a message written in ready: the gate is opened, the blood has been claimed. Prepare them. You tried to confront her. You stepped into her room, heart hammering like a trapped bird. She looked up from the window, not startled, ready, as if she'd been waiting. She said you couldn't stop it, that it had already seen you, that your resistance only excites it. Then she smiled, and the lights flickered, and your knees buckled. As the pressure in the room tripled in an instant, something brushed past you. You turned, but nothing was there. She dreams of wings now, not angelic, shattered, rusted wings of bone and broken glass. You hear her cry out names in her sleep, ancient syllables that sound like war chants sung from a burning throne. And she wakes with her eyes already open, watching, waiting, listening. God says she traded protection for power, not the kind that glows or heals, but the kind that breaks locks and opens forbidden gates. She thought it was control, but it was permission, and what she permitted now has access to your family's spirit, line, rooted generations deep. What once was bound has been invited back in. There's a reason your cousin's child got sick out of nowhere. Why your uncle's dreams have turned violent. The ripple spreads outward, seeking weakness. This isn't possession, it's infestation. A dark covenant made not by oath, but by will. And because you share blood, your name is now part of its dominion. Archangel Michael says you must prepare. Light will not reach her as she is now, but it will reach you. You must be sanctified, not just in faith, but in fire, a cleansing that strips illusions and scars the soul with divine clarity. Only then can you stand in the storm that is coming. Only then can you survive the reckoning she has brought. You notice the photos fading. Your sister's face looks different in them now. Not aged, blurred, like the camera couldn't quite hold her image. In one, she's missing entirely. Her absence screams from the empty chair she sat in. And in the mirror behind the group, there's a figure, tall, crooked, watching. You cannot run from this. The pact she made has begun to call in its debt, and the payment is never simple, never immediate. It unspools across time, across generations, until the entire bloodline is singing the same cursed lullaby. Something will happen soon, a shattering, a tearing of veils. When it comes, it will not knock, it will not warn. It will arrive in the middle of an ordinary moment. When someone laughs, when the door is opened, when the sky is too quiet. And then everything will change. God says your sister is no longer alone in her body, and you are no longer innocent in your silence. She carries her secrets like a shadow folded inside her chest, silent but heavy, pressing against the ribs as if it might burst free with the slightest breath. The family dinners are no longer filled with laughter, but the echo of absence. An empty space where her voice once blended with yours, now replaced by a cold quiet that screams louder than any words. Behind her eyes, the flicker of a war raging, just beyond your sight, is growing. Your sister's silence is not emptiness. It is a fortress, built from whispered threats and broken prayers, a barricade against something clawing at her from within. You watch her trace the edges of her hands, as if memorizing the skin's geography, while inside, the battle unfolds in shadows. Her dreams are no longer hers. Fragments of dark visions spill into her waking hours like poison. Sometimes, in the stillness of the night, you hear her mutter names that do not belong to this time or place, voices from realms where justice is not mercy. God says silence is not absence but presence. The presence of things unspoken, the weight of sins carried in secret. Your sister is locked in a silent war, a struggle between what she once was and what the darkness demands she become. You see it in the way her hands tremble when she touches family photographs, how her breath catches when she hears a knock at the door, how her eyes, once bright with life, now reflect only fractured light. The house itself seems to respond to her silence. Walls shift, shadows deepen, and the air thickens with a tension that makes your skin crawl. At times, the floor beneath your feet feels unstable, as if the house itself trembles with the unrest within her soul. Objects once familiar now bear the mark of disturbance, a picture frame tilted, a candle melted unevenly, a book left open on pages you never remember reading. Archangel Michael says, "This is the sound of spiritual conflict, unseen armies clashing in the hidden spaces between your worlds." Your sister's silence is a battlefield, her soul the prize. Forces of light and darkness circle her, each trying to claim dominion over the fragile human vessel she inhabits. The tension you feel is not imagined. It is the sound of heaven and hell warring over one life. You've tried to reach her, to break the silence with words of love and truth, but your voice falls flat against a wall you cannot see. Each attempt is met with a flicker of pain in her eyes, a tremor in her lips, and then the silence returns, deeper and more impenetrable than before. You understand now that this silence is a shield, a desperate last stand against the tide threatening to drown her. The nights are the hardest. You wake to find her standing at the window, staring into the void, as if she sees beyond the world you share. Sometimes she turns suddenly, eyes wild and distant, voice hoarse, as she whispers names you don't recognize. Names like keys unlocking doors you wish would remain closed. When she sleeps, her body twists in unrest, and a low hum vibrates through the walls, an otherworldly chant that fills the air with dread. God says the silence you hear is the voice of the spirit trapped inside her, pleading for release or revenge. It is a voice born from betrayal, from ancient wounds reopened, from promises broken beneath the surface of time. Your sister's soul is caught in a storm, buffeted by winds of darkness and flickering hopes of redemption. The family feels the strain too. Arguments flare like lightning strikes, quick, fierce, and leaving scorched earth behind. Trust fractures beneath the weight of unspoken fears, and love fights to hold itself together amid the growing shadows. Each day, you sense the walls closing in, the line between sanctuary and prison thinning. Archangel Michael says the only way to break this silence is through confrontation, not with anger, but with courage. To face the truth that has taken root, to shine a light into the darkest corners, to speak aloud the names the shadows whisper in the night. Only then can the fortress begin to crumble and the healing begin. You find yourself drawn to her room, standing at the threshold as if on the edge of a precipice. Inside, the air is heavy with things unsaid, an altar of broken memories, relics half forgotten. The scent of incense burned long ago. You reach out, touch the cold surface of the mirror, and see not your reflection, but the flicker of a face behind you, a face twisted with sorrow and rage. Your sister's silence has become a language, and it speaks of loss, of sacrifice, of battles fought in shadows where you cannot follow. But God says the silence will not hold forever. The echoes beneath it grow louder, gathering strength for the moment when all will be revealed. You brace yourself for the storm to come, knowing that when the silence breaks, it will shatter everything you thought you knew. The air thickened like molten glass as the walls seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting with an unseen force. The house no longer just shelter, but battleground. Your family's fragile peace shatters with each passing hour, the tension building like the calm before a thunderstorm, whose rage promises no mercy. The veil between worlds thins as you stand at the heart of a trial you never sought but cannot escape. Your sister's presence in the room pulls at the air like gravity twisted. Every breath she takes stirring currents no eye can see. The objects she touched, silver spoons, ancient heirlooms, and sacred texts, react, trembling in defiance or dread. Doors slam without wind. The faintest flickers of pale blue light pulse in corners where shadows should reign. The house is alive with battle. God says the spiritual trial has begun. This is no simple struggle of flesh and bone, but a war waged in realms unseen, where divine forces confront what your sister has unleashed. Archangel Michael says the enemy is cunning and patient, weaving lies like silk threads to ensnare the innocent and the willing alike. Your family has become a prize both dark and wholly covered. You see it in your sister's eyes, now glowing faintly with an unnatural light, a tempest trapped beneath a fragile mask. Her hands shake not with fear, but with the weight of a destiny she cannot deny. She moves through the house like a summoned ghost, speaking in tongues that claw at your mind's edges. Her silence has given way to chants and prayers, both beautiful and terrifying. At the same time, you feel another presence, warm and relentless, pressing against the encroaching cold. It is a light that will not yield, a sword drawn in the spiritual dark. Archangel Michael says he is near, guarding the boundary, watching the battle lines as they draw closer. His wings cast shadows over your trembling home, ready to strike with divine justice. The family fractures under the strain. Your parents grow distant, caught in webs of confusion and denial. You witness whispered arguments behind closed doors, eyes filled with fear that words cannot voice. Trust erodes as accusations hang unsaid, and the silent war invades every corner of your lives. The very foundation of your family trembles beneath the weight of unseen forces. God says the trial will expose all secrets, even those buried beneath generations of silence. What you thought was family is tested, stretched until every hidden truth leaks into the light. Your sister is both victim and catalyst, a storm moving through your bloodline, unrelenting and merciless. The choice is not hers alone anymore. One night, the storm breaks, the moon trembles behind torn clouds, casting shards of silver across the shattered altar in your sister's room. The air hums with ancient power as voices rise, some pleading, some condemning, in a chorus that shakes the walls. The battle spills into the physical, and you stand in the eye of a war between worlds. Archangel Michael's voice cuts through the chaos, clear and commanding. This is a reckoning of spirit and flesh. The darkness will not yield without a fight, but neither will the light. You are caught in between. Your family the battleground and the prize. The trial is no longer unseen. It is here, and it demands your courage. You reach out to your sister, hands trembling, voice steady, despite the tempest raging around you. Her eyes meet yours, no longer vacant, but fierce, wild with the knowledge of what has come and what must be done. Together, you stand at the edge of a choice, to surrender to the darkness that claws at her soul, or to fight with every shard of light left in your hearts. God says this trial is your family's crucible, the fire through which you will either be consumed or reborn. The unseen forces gather, and their patience is thinning. The next steps will echo through generations, shaping the destiny of all who bear your blood. The storm rages on, but you know this moment is the turning point. The unseen trial is no longer distant. It is here, and it demands all you have to give. The night the house trembled, the moon was swallowed by clouds that bled shadows onto every surface. The air was thick with the scent of burnt incense and something far older, ancient iron and wet earth, as if the grave itself had exhaled. Your family gathered, but the warmth was gone, replaced by a silence so dense it pressed like stone. Your sister stood at the center, a fragile figure against a tide of unseen forces tightening their grip. God says this is the moment where light and shadow collide, where the walls between the sacred and the profane shatter in a storm of raw truth. Your sister's silence breaks, but it is no peaceful release. It is a scream into the void, a battle cry that reverberates through the bones of your ancestors. The house quakes beneath the weight of the unseen war raging inside her, and your family feels the tremors deep within their souls. You see her not as the sister you knew, but as a vessel cracked and bleeding spirit fire. Her eyes flash with wild storms, hands clutching at the invisible chains that bind her to forces older than your bloodline. She speaks words that tear at the fabric of the night, calling names that do not belong to this world, but echo from a past where betrayal was currency and power a curse. Archangel Michael says this breaking point is the crucible of souls, the moment where choice defines eternity. Darkness seeks to claim what is fractured, light fights to reclaim what is lost. Your sister's soul hangs in the balance, and so does the fate of your family's line. The battle is no longer distant. It is inside your home, inside your hearts. The walls bleed shadows now, dark tendrils reaching into every room, suffocating light, twisting memories into nightmares. You try to hold your family together, but the cracks are widening. Your mother's prayers falter. Your father's strength wanes, and you stand alone in the center, a flicker of resistance against the encroaching storm. God says, you must embrace the fire that burns within you, the fierce love that refuses to yield. This is the moment of reckoning, the hour when faith becomes weapon and shield. The darkness will claw and bite, but you carry the light that can heal or destroy. The choice is yours and yours alone. Your sister falls to her knees, her body shaking as the weight of the unseen presses down. She whispers apologies to ghosts only she can see, promises made in broken tongues. And then, with a cry that rends the night, she reaches for you, her blood, her family, her salvation. Archangel Michael stands beside you, sword drawn and wings unfurled, a beacon in the storm. His voice is thunder, commanding the darkness to relent, to release what it has claimed. The battle surges, fierce and unyielding, until the house trembles no more and silence falls, heavy but not empty. God says the breaking point is a beginning, not an end. What shatters can be rebuilt, what is lost can be found. But the scars remain, reminders of the price paid and the strength earned. Your sister's fate is intertwined with yours, bound by blood, trial, and the flickering flame of hope that refuses to die. You stand at the edge of dawn, the first light cutting through the remnants of night's terror. The war is not over, but the tide has shifted. The family, fractured but unbroken, begins to heal, not through forgetting, but through facing the darkness with open eyes and hearts on fire. The silence that once held your sister now trembles with the promise of voice, and the house, though scarred, breathes again beneath the rising sun.